Step one, I just set the rack up, make sure the lip points are in there, just make sure everything's good, it's on the pinch frame. Then what I'll do is come over here and check the battery real quick. Flashlight. We'll go right here. The key is just to get the clamps on the battery terminal as best you can. Just make sure they don't come off. And then what you're looking for is you want to look for the cold cranking amps for the battery. So skip some of this stuff. It's not really skipping, it's just bypassing it. You got 760 cold crank amps. Get to 760, hit enter, it's over 32 degrees. And it's going to check it real quick. It passed. Print it out. This way the customer knows, sees it. Battery tested good. Now put this back, put everything back the way it was when it came in. Take this, put it on the ticket. Then I'll come over here, I'll check the air filter real quick. Air filter looks good, so we'll just throw it back in there. We'll make sure we mark good on the inspection list. You want to close that. I'll take the cap off there. I'm going to check the drive belt real quick, make sure there's no cracks or anything in it. So while I'm checking that, I'm also checking the level on the coolant. I'm going to check the level of the washer fluid. They do have a different color washer fluid in this one, so I'll ask the advisor to make sure if we can put coolant in there. Check the brake fluid real quick. Everything looks good up top so far, so then I'll come over here and I'll lift the vehicle. When you're lifting the vehicle, you just want to make sure there's nothing, like nothing's hidden. You want to make sure it's on the frame and there's nothing like plastic wise that's going to hit the lift so it doesn't damage the vehicle's car. And I get it about right here, then I'll shake it, make sure it's good. And then what I do is I'll lift it to at least chest high or waist high, my stomach or my chest. So this way I can, when I go and take the wheels off, I can not strain my back or anything like that. I can do it safely. So that's about right. And then I'll take my hose here, run over here to get the my impact wrench. Get my socket here. Now this vehicle is equipped with a wheel lock key. You always want to make sure you put that back in the glove box or where it came from. So then you just put it in reverse, take the wheels off. So we have these trays here. We always put them here, this way they don't get lost or anything. And then I'll come to the next one. I'll do all 4 of them real quick. And then your wheel lock key. I always want to make sure your air hose is out of the way safely. You don't trip over. And the wheel lock key sits in there a certain way, so it's got to be nice and tight when it goes. Because sometimes what will happen is you'll put it like this, and then if you hit it, it just, grinds the lug nut. You don't want to do that, it could tear it up. Take that off. I always put the wheel lock key where I'm going to start at when I put the tires back on. Put my impact down, and then you want to just wiggle these loose. Make sure they come off. So now I take the front tire, put it in put the rear tire, put it in the front. And take the front, put it in the rear. And see, and then I'm going to start the inspections on the brakes and stuff. So I'll go grab my gauge here. Got a tire gauge, also got a brake gauge. So you also want to check the tires, make sure they're good. These look like they're at 9s. You check it 3 times or so, the lowest point. You check. Okay. And then you'll take the brake gauge here. Put that in my pocket. Check the brakes. These are at a 6, so these are good. Even though my gauge says yellow, it's actually good. So and then at this point, what I'm doing is I'm checking bushings, checking shocks and struts, make sure they're not leaking. Checking the brakes, make sure they look okay. There's no leaking or anything. Rotor's okay. And then what I'll do is I'll move to the front and do the same thing. You know, you want to check struts, make sure there's nothing leaking there. Make sure none of the ball joints or the tie rods have any play. I'm also going to check the CV axle and stuff. This one looks like it is leaking. So it's slinging grease, if you can tell right there, it's slinging grease right in there. So this one will need a CV axle. And so what I'll do is, before I write the job up for it, I will take a picture of it. If I can get my phone in there. Take my picture real quick. This way the customer sees that it is leaking and it is bad. So then I'll move to the other side and swap the tires there and do the same thing. Sometimes these wheels get seized onto the hub and stuff, and what you'll have to do is take like a dead blow hammer on the backside, put a lug nut on it, and hit it off that way. So I'll swap these tires real quick. This way they're already swapped, and I'll go back to doing this. Check the bushings, check the brakes. These brakes are good. Typically I'll take a gauge to the just one side, and then if this side looks like that side, I won't put a gauge to it. If it looks good, then I just move on. Now, if this side was lower, then I would take a gauge to it, because maybe there could be a seats caliber or something. And I'll go to the front and do it. So we know that CV axle was leaking on the other side. This one looks all right. And then we're checking bushings and stuff. You want to check, you know, these bushings. You want to check the tie rods, make sure there's no play in them or anything. So check the front brakes, those look good. They're pretty thick and there's no grooves or anything in the rotors. Now at this time I'm going to raise the vehicle all the way up and then check underneath. And once again, just be safe when you're lifting vehicles, and when you're lowering them, just make sure there's nothing around. Make sure there's no one around. You want to give a good height, because obviously you don't want to hit your head or anything. So I mean, I give it just a little bit. Then what I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll check the back side of the engine if I can see it. This stuff looks good. I'll run my flashlight down, make sure all this is good in here. There's no rear differential, so we don't have to worry about it. And then I'm just going to recheck the back and make sure I didn't miss anything, even though I did check it in the front. I mean, I checked it on the other side, but I still want to be sure. So this one's equipped with like a skid plate or an access panel for the like the oil and the oil plug. So, but we're just gonna keep checking real quick. We want to, even though I checked the belt earlier, see, I couldn't check this belt earlier because I couldn't see it. It's always a good thing just to get underneath it and look, make sure that belt is okay. That's probably your looks like your water pump. It's a separate belt. So some cars are equipped that way, some aren't. And then I'll go back over here and just verify that CV axle still is, you know, obviously leaking. But this way I have a better vantage point. You can also see some of the stuff on that side where it's been slinging over there. And now what I'll do is I'll take these off and start changing the oil on it. And that's how you, I'll start the inspection, and then once I start changing oil, then I'll go and write my estimate up. And that's how you do a 15-minute multi-point inspection.